Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, you're listening to the Samuel Brock Flynn Show on air.
Hello, I'm Samuel Brock Flynn. We got Chris Free and Joey
Good evening,
RASSOOL.
everybody.
RASSOOL.
Hey, how are you?
And
We got our special guest
how are
tonight
you guys
is
doing
Joey
today?
RASSOOL. He's a cinematographer. And
Yep.
Good evening, Joey. I'd like to just introduce yourself and tell you a little about your background, what you do, and the audience there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm a cinematographer here in LA. I work on everything from feature films to commercials and music videos. But at the same time, I also work with a bunch of different YouTube channels producing content for YouTube. And it's a very different environment, the two against each other.
Okay, so these YouTube channels, you basically
Have
come
you
up
worked with any famous people?
Yeah, we with the last project that we've been shooting with a channel called In the Sun. The last project involved an actor named Jason David Frank, who was one of the original Power Rangers. And there's a community of prominent celebrities that just love working on YouTube as well. So you've got your Nathan Fillion, your Grant Imahara, Chris Hardwick, obviously all over the internet, and it's this whole kind of backyard playground down here in LA where you can just call up a bunch of people and say, hey, you want to shoot a video next week, and there's a chance that someone on that video will be someone very well known.
Yeah, so a lot of them basically.
Yeah.
So when you were working with these people, a lot of times, they're not always real hard to get some of these stars on board for a little money, or is it? These are mostly fan films that you're doing.
Yeah,
a lot
and
of these YouTube videos.
So the thing about a fan film is obviously there's not a lot of money being thrown around, but there is a lot of heart and a lot of passion. And the very first few fan films I worked on were not because they were going to pay well, but because I got the opportunity to say that I had worked on a Batman film. And I think the first one I did, there were very few fan films out there. So when you say you've worked on a Batman film, you're stacked up against the Warner Brothers productions, and like the '89 and the '93 and things like that. And I feel like the celebrities will participate in that for the same reason. They're fans.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like you said, they're the fans of growing up as a kid or a teenager too, as well. Anybody else? And now that for the audience out there who doesn't really know what a fan film, can you describe what a fan film is?
Well, so a fan film is basically a film that is made on an existing IP without the usage rights to that film. So or to that character rather. So there's already some inherent problems. You can't ever sell the film because it's not your property to sell. So they tend to be very low budget, and you can't. It's very difficult to distribute the film, at least up until YouTube. So YouTube has opened this door for a bunch of people to be able to share this content. And some of the stuff that comes out of fan filmmaking has honestly been more accurate to the character than a lot of Hollywood stuff, because you don't have a board of people to please. You don't have a toy company to please. You don't have other sponsors to please. You don't have an actor who says he's not going to do a certain thing or wants this certain shot in the film. You get down to the core fandom, and obviously the production values are lower, but I think there's more character in a lot of these pieces.
I've seen some of these fan films on online, and some of these basically, they look like they have an actual huge budget sometimes, or from visual effects to the costumes and everything else.
Yeah,
A lot of times it's more with computers now these days. A lot of these digital effects can be done really cheap. It's just more knowledge and time consuming, I guess.
That's the thing, and people, young filmmakers are getting more and more multi-talented than ever. You don't have this specialization in the workforce as much. So someone who's a good director will, can occasionally also know a lot about visual effects, and be able to do it for himself. It'll take longer and it'll take more of his time and energy, but obviously you can do that without a lot of money. And with a lot of big budget projects, it's amazing how much money has to be spent to see a change on the screen, because 9 times out of 10 the money is going not onto the screen itself but into someone's pocket. And obviously there are other things that a big budget production will do that a YouTube production won't. And unfortunately, some of those things revolve around safety, around permits, and things like that. So, again, you run into another kind of legal snafu with the idea of fan films.
Now, what kind of feature films have you worked on in recent years?
So there were a couple early on in, I believe it was 2011, a couple horror films. Cesar Natto's Deadly Christmas, which is still circulating right now. In fact, I think you can get it on Netflix. There was Finders Keepers, Thieves and Killers, kind of psychological thriller. And then I got to work as part of the camera crew on a film called Dead Inside, which came out about 2012, I believe, and has been circling festivals since. And in fact, that cinematographer that I got to work under on that project has gone on to, win festival after festival with other films. So, that was a great learning experience for sure.
And you also worked on a lot of stuff with the
I have a few
sports.
questions.
Sorry, which question?
My question
you guys were talking about the work at Fox Sports?
What does a photographer do? The colorist do?
Well,
Just
a cinematographer or director of photography, it's a bit of a balancing act, and it's a little bit of a blurred line job. Generally, you're in charge of the look and feel of the film. You're in charge of the lighting design. You're usually in charge of a lot of the camera angles and some of the pacing of the camera movements. And I say it's a blurred line because there are some directors who really know what they want visually, and they know what they want in terms of lighting and know what they want in terms of camera angles, and it's the DP's job to kind of interpret that and translate that and make sure the crew is able to do that. And there are other directors who just want to focus on the actors. So as a director of photography, you're entirely in charge of the lighting setup, entirely in charge of where the camera's going to be. And it's just, that's why you see a lot of cinematographers and directors that work together again and again, because it's like two puzzle pieces that have to fit together very well.
Yeah, because you got to work, like you said, you got to work with that director's vision, and also too, like the director a lot of times he wants, cinematographer that has that same type of look that he's looking for. So color.
So it's definitely a very symbiotic relationship, and I feel like usually it's more on the cinematographer's shoulders to kind of work with a director, kind of fit with the style and be a little bit more flexible depending on what kind of director the person is. But when you get two people who can work together great, it really just comes together.
Now, do you have any directors that you directly work with that on a regular basis, or mostly a lot of times?
Well, I definitely have. I have my director over at Bat in the Sun. His name is Aaron Shunka, and he and I have worked together for a couple of years on fan films now. Outside of fan films, there is a production company called Cypher Art Studios here in Los Angeles, and the director there, Sasha Travis, is someone I'm actually on set with right now because we're prepping for a shoot in a couple days.
And can you explain a little about the shoot? Are you
cool.
at liberty to actually talk about the shoot?
Well, it'll be a short film that we're taking about 2 days to shoot. I think that's all I can really talk about at the moment. But it's a group of people that I've worked with before. That's very kind of theater-minded group. The style that they do is very, comes from the world of theater rather than the world of film. So, I mean, this is what I was talking about, where a director will very much focus on the actors and not so much be concerned about the camera and lighting. So I like working with this group because it gives me a lot of creative freedom with lighting design and camera angles and things like that.
Now, you also do sports.
Oh, cool. Wow.
And you have worked a lot with like Fox Sports and
Can you talk about your
some other live shows and stuff too.
Yeah, so I've worked with Fox Sports West for the last 3 years as a field camera operator, mostly for football, and I feel like that is good training for a cinematographer because you don't have control over the lighting, you don't have control over what you have to shoot, and yet you've still got to make every shot look pretty. So that and documentary shooting, news, ENG style shooting, I feel like that's a good grounding for a cinematographer because you get to see how to make the average things look good and look pretty, and then when you get on set and you have a full lighting truck, then you can build upon that.
Okay, and did you originally learn filmmaking from the film side? Did you like on 16 and 35 film, or did you actually, when you got your, starting filmmaking, did you actually go starting the HD video?
When I started out, I was on Super 16 film. Definitely in film school, that was my choice. But it's definitely expensive, especially for a student, to produce shorts and things like that on film stock. So when HD cameras got up to the caliber that I was happy with in late in my college career, I started shooting on those, and I still like film, but I definitely appreciate the advantages that you'll get from digital shooting.
Yeah, a lot of times, with film, it's like, there's other problems that sometimes arise too. And it's like, I had one time where I had the lab actually put too much chemicals actually in one of my student films, and I was a film student at Columbia College in Chicago, and next you know, come back, they had too much chemicals and pretty much destroyed my films. Like, at least with the video,
and it all comes down to the yeah. And then you have, non-destructive, non-linear editing and non-destructive color correction. That basically means if you do screw up something like that in color correction or in your processing, even in a transcode or something like that, you're never destroying the original, like you are in certain cases with film practices. And again, they're like, even with film, there are ways around that, but it just gets so expensive to keep copies and copies of the master footage.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember back in the days of film, a lot of times we like what they call
cinematography and TV and all that.
Well, more or less, I got started in it from working in front of the camera at first. I was working as a stunt performer, and I'd been working in front of the camera, from when I was in high school. And on set, when they were doing your second unit shots, a lot of the stunt team kind of melds with the camera department because, you want to keep the camera department safe and you want to make sure that you have a good idea of what they're doing, and if it's stepping out of the realm of safety, you want to be aware of that. So I ended up learning a lot about cameras just from, being next to them all the time. And so when I went to film school, I bought my own camera. In the last few years I was at school, I bought my own digital camera and started shooting there.
Now, what's some of your favorite
cool.
cameras as far as out there that you work with now these days? As far as, are you more in for the DSLR movement, or are you more like the Red, or
well,
some of the higher
it all
Sony's?
comes down to it all comes down to what a project can handle, and very rarely is that a question of money. Especially with cameras getting so much cheaper and cheaper. The Sony camera, the digital camera they used to have that before the Red became a thing, the Sony F-35 was about $250,000 to own, and now the HD technology is coming down in price so much that it's very rarely a question of money. It's more a question of what kind of process the rest of the film is taking. Is it a fast run and gun shoot that you've got to be following reality TV style? Then you're going to want a different camera, more ENG style body, as opposed to a DSLR or something like that. I definitely like the Reds. I prefer something like a Canon C300, or even an Alexa if the budget calls for it. And the DSLRs are definitely a good starting point for filmmakers that are coming out of school, but they do certainly have their flaws.
Yeah, and each camera is basically different. Where the DSLR cameras, they came up basically, they're originally as a still-based camera where they just add video, to these cameras. And all those listeners out there, Vincent LaFerre, who's actually he's actually an award-winning photographer, photojournalist, and he did a little short film on a Canon 5D Mark II, and next thing you know, he put it up on.
He was a photographer who definitely knew the ins and outs of that camera and already had a great library of equipment when people started to just get the idea of shooting with DSLRs. And that's the one thing that I definitely do appreciate about the DSLRs is it opened up all the equipment that was available to photographers for use in film and in cinema. The lenses that Canon and Nikon have been making for portrait photography and things like that, it's been around for such a long time, but it's not been very often that they were used for cinematography or film in any way before the DSLRs, because I guess it just really hadn't occurred to anybody that these lenses have been designed much cheaper than cinema lenses, and with the ability to handle HD footage. Because a digital photo is much larger than an HD image. Yeah,
the sensor sizes on these things, had a lot of things between that. And,
but even
the depth of field you get
pixel
from
density. Yeah, and the depth of field that you get, that's not so much with the full frame cameras, but definitely with the APS-C, that's really close to a Super 35, or the same size sensor as a Red or an Alexa. And then with the 5Ds, you've got the full frame video, which is a completely new look that hasn't really been shot since VistaVision, and now it's easily accessible. I think you can find a used 5D Mark II for probably under $1,000 nowadays.
Now, a lot of things now being pushed, start going to the 4K, and as much as 5 and 6K when you jump up to the Red cameras. Now, where do you see this market going as far in the future, and with the 4Ks versus a lot of stuff right now, like majority of your home televisions are 1080p, but they just now starting to roll out the 4K televisions. Where do you see the necessary?
I'm definitely an advocate of shooting in 4K. I definitely think that's a good idea because it does, to a certain extent, it future-proofs your project with the original. But moreover, it makes a lot of sense to me that you're shooting larger than you're exporting. Even if your video is only going to be HD in the end, if you shoot it in 4K, that means that you have the ability to reframe in post, which may not look as good, but it's sometimes you really do need something like that. And you have a 4K image for your visual effects people to work with, which means that they can kind of build a slightly more real image, especially when it gets shrunken down and the resolution gets cut. It feels much more ingrained in the image itself. So I think that I'm definitely going to be shooting in 4K more often. Yeah.
Now, in Hollywood right now,
what is your website for people to go and visit?
My website is...
we got 9 minutes left, so it's time almost to wrap it up, but I just want to get some information where people could check out films, IMDb's, and other what have yous.
Great. Well, my website is just JOEYRASSOOL.com, RASSOOL, and the best places to find my work on the internet, I would definitely check out Bat in the Sun Productions on YouTube and Cypher Arts. Those are the two companies that I work with the most. And I will be putting updates on Facebook and Twitter and things like that. So you can just search Joey Rassool through Facebook and Twitter and find me there.
All right, can you spell your last name as far as so people want?
All righty.
Sure. RASSOOL.
I get it. And also too, it's like now too in Hollywood now where you got the low budgets are using DSLR, but the bigger budgets. What do you ask the audience, viewers, listeners out there? What basically the biggest cameras that you mostly see on the bigger Hollywood shoots, like the studio shoots?
Well,
these days.
So these days, everybody thinks that the Red is the biggest player, but actually, it's still kind of the opposite. The Red is designed to do things very cheaply, the most expensive possible things very cheaply, but. So the larger, more popular camera is the Arri Alexa still, and that's been around for years, and it's still a reigning champion, even though it's not a 4K image, it's a 2.7K at the most, but there's a qualitative difference rather than a quantitative difference. It's not so much about the numbers that the camera can chuck out. It's about the way the image looks, and a lot of the bigger DPs really like the image that comes out of the Alexa. It feels much more like film, and you can do a whole lot with the Red, but I don't know. It's got its fans and it's got its enemies.
And I don't know if you heard, there was also a 4K version of Arri Alexa that's actually in the works right now too, as well. So
I'd be interested to see them do that. I think I heard something not too long ago from Arri that they weren't necessarily pushing 4K, especially since they recently had their Amira come out, which is I think still only an HD image, and that the Alexa has been around for so long that when they finally built a new camera, you'd think that they would pull out all the stops, but again, it's the things that they do with an image are more qualitative, and I feel like Canon is doing similar things now with like the C300, because if you look at the C300 just by the numbers, it looks like a woefully overpriced camera for what you're getting, but then you look at the image, and there's something that you can't describe with numbers on a piece of paper that that looks good about that image.
Yeah, for the audience out there, a C300 actually is a 1080p camera, and they also there's a one right above that, which is actually a 4K camera. That
the
Canon
C500.
makes, Canon C500.
Yeah, and I feel like there are definitely people out there that are not fans of Canon for the fact they hold back a lot of their a lot of the power in cameras, because if you look at the C300 and the C100, they're still the same 4K sensors as the C500, but neither of them can record 4K, and indeed they're much lower bit rates. They're both, the C100 is missing slow-mo entirely from its abilities. But I think that the people that are complaining about that kind of thing are, you know, if you're trying to buy the camera as an individual for yourself, if you're renting cameras or if you are a studio or anything like that, the little, you know, jump in price there is hardly a drop in the bucket. So I still very much appreciate the work that they're doing.
Now the lighting side, are you know, now these days you got a lot more. You know, back in the day it was mostly all your tungsten style in HMI lights. You know, now you got these LED lights, and you got the, you know, that, or you got the fluorescence out there.
Yeah.
So is there a particular type of lighting that you like, or do you prefer some of the newer types of lighting to have, like the LEDs, or?
You know, I usually work with a real mix, actually, because I use a lot of LED, like 1x1s and things like that for soft lights. They're really good to move around quickly and just go in and fix a problem like a shadow here or a fill light there. But then the other light that I use a lot is a Lico, which is more often just the theater light, and it's, you know, just a big spotlight, about 750 watt usually, and the two of those together, like if you can balance the use of the two of those, and obviously with some little tungsten lights here and there, and maybe a Kinoflow or something like that. So I mean, you've got to be able to balance all the different tools. I don't think you can get by with just using one style of light.
Okay. Is there anything
Sammy sorry about that. That was Facebook.
All right, Sammy, would like to say anything?
Yeah, what kind of music videos did you do?
Well, still doing music videos here and there. Mostly, I was doing them when I started out. So it was kind of any local band here in LA that was needing one. Rock, rap, anything really. And you know, there's so many local bands around in LA. It's such an artist community that there's always someone looking for a cheap music video, and it's a good way for a cinematographer to start out.
Cool.
Okay. Anything else that you actually like to tell the audience out there?
Hello, Samuel Brock Flynn Show will be ending soon.
Well, definitely.
Okay, everybody.
Make
Thank
sure
you, Joey, for joining us. We'll be ending here in a few seconds. Here, thank you very much, Joey, for joining us tonight. And
thank you.
This is Chris Free, and also my co-host here is Samuel.
This is Samuel Brock Flynn Show crew. Samuel Brock Flynn and Chris Free.
All right, thank you guys.
And thank you guys. And everybody else out there, listeners out there, have a great night. And please listen to our next show. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Bye.
All right.